Welcome to episode 145 of the most musty show to ever hit the Bedford TV airwaves, or any airwaves for that matter. North, south, east, west, backwards, frontwards, sideways, any which way you look at it. The Wrestling Connection. I am your host, your connection to the wrestling world, the Fedorable felon himself. Of course, Fedorable plus one dashing Santa hat. And your brand new 10-time King of Pay-Per-View champion, Mr. Ken Hill, at your service today. Alongside me, well, off screen, is the infamous Mr. Greg Dolan. And of course, in the control room today, the former King of Pay-Per-View champion, who did not have such a stellar Sunday evening.
Not really.
But still
not
in good spirits, because
Not
Christmas
good.
is on his way.
I'm not worried.
Mr. 8-Ball.
Greg can say hello now.
The Wrestling Connection's one-stop magic shop.
Hi, Ken.
Mr. Nick Giglio. And yes, Mr. Greg
Hi.
Dolan, interspersing himself as
Hey, Ken.
usual. Hi, Greg.
Hi, Ken.
Hi, Greg. Hi, Nick.
Ken of the Hill.
King of the
Benjamin
Hill.
Hill.
King of
Let's
the
go.
Hill. I'm King of the Hill. Yes, thank you. And yes, I've had too many ho's. It's been showing. I gotta lay off the sweets. All right. So anyway, like I said, Sunday I once again became your 10-time King of Pay-Per-View champion, following WWE Smackdown Live's Tables, Ladders, and Chairs pay-per-view, which means right now it's time for our pay-per-review of Tables, Ladders, and Chairs. Oh my.
And Ken.
And Ken. All right, so let's just jump right into things. We go to the first match of the pay-per-view night, which was for the tag team championships. You had the members of the new Wyatt family, Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt, challenging the eclectic duo of Heath Slater and Rhino. Now, this was one of those rare occasions where the champions were the underdogs going into the match, just because of the overwhelming resume of Randy Orton with the macabre charisma of one Bray Wyatt. Now, Bray and Randy have been showing how much more of a cohesive unit they've been the last couple weeks on SmackDown, and that continued here. Now, what I liked about this is that Rhino and Heath realized how serious a challenge was posed by Bray and Randy, and thus they had Rhino start the match. I like when they have that little bit of psychology. When the champs know they're in a tough position, they change things up. They change their strategy to meet the oncoming threat. However, it simply just was not enough. Despite their best efforts, the champs were dispatched in surprisingly short fashion, only around 5-6 minutes, and we had brand new tag team champions in Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt of the new Wyatt family. This being Bray Wyatt's first championship in WWE. I mean, you already had Luke Harper, who's a former NXT Tag Team Champion, Intercontinental Champion. Of course, Randy Orton's vast championship resume speaks for itself. But this is the first time since Bray has hit the WWE scene since 2013 that he has secured a championship, which I think is probably the biggest shock of all of us, because no one ever truly thought that Bray was going to hold championship gold at some point. I was very hopeful, and I didn't even think it was going to happen, but here it is. It was announced this past week in WWE that the Wyatt family will be going by the same rules that the New Day Defender tag team titles by, those being the Freebird rules. For those who don't know what the Freebird rule is, you see the Fabulous Freebirds were a 3-man tag team back in the heyday of WWF, who were known for being a 3-man team that held the 2-man tag team titles. They shared them equally. Okay, so you could have 2 different members of the 3-man group represent the tag team champions. So essentially, Luke Harper, even though he wasn't in the match this past Sunday, has been sanctioned as a co-champion, which means he can defend the tag team championships alongside Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton. So what we also saw here that was interesting was that Luke actually took the bullet here for Randy at one point, taking a gore from Rhino meant for Randy. So we're seeing that even though Luke is not exactly approving of Orton trying to like kind of wean his way in to the grace of Bray Wyatt, of the Wyatt family, Luke is slowly accepting Orton more and more. So it'll be interesting to see like where that dichotomy between Randy and Luke and Harper goes, because while Bray is seemingly completely bought into what Orton brings to the table, and seems like Orton is following Wyatt's every word, saying and word. He's being treated as an equal. Harper, I mean, you have to understand, Harper feels like the forgotten first son here of the Wyatt family. He feels like that Orton is trying to usurp his role as like the second in command of the Wyatt family. That's how Harper's feeling right here. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes on, as he and Randy are more than likely going to be called on to defend the tag team titles for the Wyatt family. All right, so moving on from there, we come to one of our first championship match. We come to our second championship match of the night, actually. Before that, we come to the no disqualification match. The no disqualification match between Nikki Bella and Carmella. Now, of course, this rivalry has been brewing for the last couple of months. Basically, Carmella has been up in Nikki's business about her kind of mooching off of her boyfriend John Cena to get ahead in the business. No real big shocker there. It's been basically common knowledge about Nikki and John's relationship for some time now. Now it's only just being brought to light. So that was the basis for this feud right here. Now here's the big problem here. Now, this had good build-up. The match itself was fine. Okay, it was a nice little light DQ affair. You had fire extinguishers. You had the kendo sticks. So basically, you had like a nice little like.
Ken, is that your favorite weapon, by the way?
Kendo stick?
Yeah.
Why? Because it's got Ken in it.
It's got Ken in it. Come on.
The kendo
Is that what you would use if you were you were a WWE superstar?
Yeah, probably, but I'm not a WWE
Be like,
superstar.
oh, fear Ken, fear my kendo stick.
Yep, that's what I pick.
Oh yeah, I defend myself with Kenpo karate.
Yep.
Ooh, I like that too.
Yeah. I haven't heard that.
So active.
All right. Anyway,
My weapon of choice.
Yeah, thank you. Getting back to the point.
In
on
what
hand.
room though? Like the conservatory?
Now, the match ended basically when Nikki pretty much snuffed out Carmella's fire with a fire extinguisher, appropriate, yes, and hit her with the Rack Attack 2.0 for the victory, for a clean victory. After which, Carmella got on the mic and basically said that, "Oh, BTW, you may have thought it was me who assaulted you last month at Survivor Series and took you out of the women's Survivor Series match. That wasn't me. That was Natalya." So basically, at this point, all we could do was go on Carmella's word instead of like going for the shocking reveal. Instead, maybe have like Natalya come out during the match as the coach, say that what's going on is too harsh. She's trying to put a stop to it. Nikki says no way. She tries to continue the match, only for Natalya to lay her out. And then we get the reveal that Natalya in her own way admitted that she assaulted Nikki. Then we get the idea. Okay, I mean, just having Carmella doing like a backhanded reveal right here with no real basis, because she would have been the most likely suspect for jumping Nikki. Instead, she tries to pass it off to Natalya, and the only reason we even suspect Natalya is because when this past Tuesday on Smackdown, when Nikki ran into Natalya after Natalya was in pursuit of Carmella for what she said. I mean, Natalya really had no words for Nikki. She couldn't explain herself, and Nikki basically stalked off. So, I mean, I can appreciate that they're doing a slow burn here, but I think this is one of those times where you would have been better off just kind of pulling the trigger and seeing where that goes. Because I felt like there would have been more impact from Natalya revealing on her own terms that she is the one who jumped Nikki, not that Carmella has to be the one to reveal it. Because it basically just paints Carmella as a sore loser, which doesn't really do her any favors character-wise. But that's just a small nitpick. All right, so moving on from there, we come to the second championship match of the evening, the Intercontinental Championship ladder match. This being between the champion Miz and Dolph Ziggler. Now, this one was great. I mean, this was a great match from the start. I thought it was a little clunky at first, but then the pace really started to pick up. Like they had the big spots. They had the DDT into the ladder, like the springboard powerbomb from Miz to Ziggler into the ladder. The ladder assisted figure 4, which just looked plain nasty, just the way Miz was contorting Dolph's legs in and out of the ladder was just brutal. But I thought they innovated some great spots here with the ladders. And of course, you had so many near misses right here. You had Ziggler basically hopping up on one leg. You had Miz seemingly injuring himself and nearly taking himself out of the match. But then ultimately he would come back as Ziggler was ascending on 2 ladders that opened up the opportunity for Miz to hit a pair of low blows, sending Ziggler crumpling to the mat, allowing Miz to pull down the championship and retain his title. Now, what I liked about this, the one thing I definitely liked about this was that Maurice was kept completely at ringside. She did not factor into this match like so many others. There was no either hair of the Spirit Squad, which I appreciate because this was touted as the final encounter between these two. If you're going to do a final encounter, you need to have no doubt as to who came out on top here. And within the basis of the ladder match, the fact there was no disqualification, Miz ended up proving he was the better man. He proved he was the better man. He moves on from here. And I'm honestly curious to see what happens here with Ziggler. Okay, what does he do now? He no longer has the IC title was basically his whole rhyme and reason for the last 6 months as a validation for why he should still be in wrestling, why he shouldn't just retire, why he shouldn't quit. Now that it's gone, now he can no longer challenge for it as long as Miz is champion. What is there now for Ziggler? Does he try to move into the world title picture? Does he try to move on to otherwhere? Does he consider other pursuits? I think it's going to be a very interesting examination of his character as the weeks grow on, just to see where Ziggler goes from here. Meanwhile, we have Miz being his braggadocious, snarky Hollywood self, and I think everyone's loving to hate it so much. And I think that's what we love about Miz. All right, so moving on from there, we had the chairs match. With the chairs match between Baron Corbin and Kalisto. Now, going into this match, not a lot of people were sure about how this one was going to go down. They thought it was going to be clunky. Chairs matches have not had a very respectful reputation compared to tables and ladder matches. But regardless of that, Corbin and Kalisto have shown that they have a really good big guy, little guy dynamic. Essentially, you had Kalisto zipping all around the ring, throwing off Corbin with his high-flying antics. Corbin doing everything he could just to keep Kalisto grounded, swat him out of the air. You had several interesting spots with the chairs, including a senton from Kalisto to Corbin through a couch made of stacked steel of propped up steel chairs, which looked pretty nasty. Then you had Kalisto just going postal on Corbin all around ringside with a chair. You had the DDT. You had the snap Hurricane Rana into a steel chair. Kalisto utilized the chair every which way he could until Corbin essentially utilized the best way he could, basically just throwing into Kalisto's face as he was trying to zip off the top rope. After that, it was academic. Corbin picks up Kalisto, hits the end of days into the steel chair, and picks up what I thought was a very impressive win. Now, it may seem like that Corbin was spinning his wheels here with this, but I think this firmly established the Baron Corbin character. He doesn't care about anyone. He doesn't give a damn about anyone. He's just defying authorities, defying good nature. He's just going out there and being an absolute punk, rebel, anarchist. That's his whole point. And I think that he really put that point across here. He doesn't care what the announcers think. He doesn't care what the crowd thinks. He doesn't care what people think of what he did to Kalisto. He just loves beating people up and making money. So I think this went a long way in establishing his character. And if they keep him on this role, I think he's going to make. I don't think he's going to win it. But I think Corbin will make a very impressive run going into the Royal Rumble. That's something I'm looking forward to, just because they're building him up as the big threat he should be, not just to the SmackDown roster, but to the WWE in general. All right, so moving on from there, we come to the third championship match of the evening, which was the SmackDown Women's Championship, being in a tables match being defended by Becky Lynch versus Alexa Bliss. Now, of course, this is all stemming from the fact that Alexa more or less did get screwed out of her initial championship match when she was tapping out even though her foot had been on the rope beforehand. However, there's no instant replay in WWE, so the ref's decision was final. Thus, we had this rematch at TLC in a tables match. Alexa proving she could do that by putting Becky through a table the week prior. Now, this again was a surprisingly impressive match, because much like with chairs, there's not a whole lot of flexibility with tables. Basically, it's just how can you get your opponent through a table quick enough, like through a power bomb or a suplex or whatever. So they did have some interesting ways to do this. You had Alexa trying to throw a table down on Becky. You had Becky at one point using one of the table legs to lock in a disarmor on Alexa. Ultimately, it came down to Alexa powerbombing Becky off of the ring apron, through a table, catching Becky off guard, and winning her first SmackDown Women's Championship. What I thought was basically the upset, because I was not expecting this. I mean, there is the premise, because table matches are typically used as a way to get the belt off of someone without having them be pinned or made to submit and keep them looking strong, whereas you give someone else a rub by giving them the championship, which in this case, Alexa. Because now you've got Becky as the struggling, fighting underdog who's doubting herself because she didn't feel like she was passionate enough the first time around. She let Alexa get under her radar and take her championship. Now, Becky's coming back. She's fired up. Pardon the pun with her orange hair. But she's come back. She's fired up. She's refocusing, and she's zeroing back in on her regaining her women's championship. All right, so now we come to the main event. We come to the main event right here. Tables, ladders, and chairs match. Dean Ambrose challenging AJ Styles. I gotta tell you, these two, if this was a final encounter much in the same vein as Ziggler and Miz, they really pulled out all the stops for this one. I mean, you had Ambrose jumping off of ladders. You had AJ with a move of the night, a 450 springboard splash off of the ring ropes, top of the ring ropes, through Ambrose, through a table at ringside, which actually ended up injuring his ankle, as you saw this past Tuesday on SmackDown, which will keep him out for a couple of weeks. Now, again, this is a great back and forth match, fighting at ringside, into the crowd. I mean, this match had everything. I mean, a real barroom brawl scenario here, which I think really fit Ambrose. And we really saw a lot of his roots with the Shield, where he was much more ferocious and violent and grueling and willing to do anything he could to win the championship back. Now, it seemed like that he was closing in on there. He was closing in on the championship until, of all people, I mean, Ellsworth comes out, and it looks like initially that Ambrose manages to save Ellsworth from getting Styles clashed again, like he did the week prior, except that when Ambrose has AJ knocked down, he has the championship in his grasp. Ellsworth, the shocker of the night, comes out of nowhere, pushes the ladder and Ambrose through two tables waiting at ringside, sending Ambrose crashing through the tables, taking him completely out of the match, and just, that's it. That's it. AJ climbs up, retains the championship, and here's the thing. I wasn't sure how they were going to explain this, because whenever you try to take like a plucky little face underdog face and try to turn him heel, 9 times out of 10, that one time being Spike Dudley, 9 times out of 10, it does not work out well. It really doesn't. So, I mean, if you want a very vague WWE reference, look up Colin Delaney. Look up that ECW, Colin Delaney, Tommy Dreamer, and tell me how that worked out for him. Because it didn't. All right. So, but I like the reason that Ellsworth gave. The fact is that he's having such delusions of grandeur that he honestly feels like that with all the opportunities he's gotten, that he has AJ Styles' number, that he didn't mean to cost Ambrose the championship. In fact, that he says when he quote-unquote wins, he beats AJ, he's going to give Ambrose the first shot. Well, Ambrose responded as well as you figured Dean Ambrose could, laying out Ellsworth with dirty deeds. And unfortunately, Ellsworth would again be a detriment to Ambrose, coming out when Maurice was about to get involved in an Intercontinental title match between Miz defending against Ambrose. Seems like when Ambrose had the victory in hand, Ellsworth comes out, tries to rat on the interference by Maurice from earlier, only it distracted the ref from counting Miz down. So once again, Ellsworth cost Ambrose a championship, and it ended up ultimately being that because Miz would end up hitting the skull-crushing finale and retaining his Intercontinental Championship versus Dean Ambrose. So now I'm hoping that we get the storyline that we're looking for, that Ambrose goes back to his like hardcore roots, just goes absolutely berserk on Ellsworth, and hopefully sends him packing. Because honestly, I mean, you're at the point now where you kind of got to nip the Ellsworth thing in the bud. I mean, just like with Heath and Rhino from this past Sunday, you could tell their popularity is already waning, that they're already getting lukewarm right here. Same with Ellsworth, okay? He's starting to get lukewarm reactions too. The key thing is pull the trigger with Ellsworth. Basically, the next couple of weeks, or even just at the Royal Rumble, just have someone destroy him. Whether it be Ambrose or Strowman or whoever, just have someone come out, absolutely destroy Ellsworth, and send him packing. That's it. That's all I gotta say on that. All right, so Nick, seems like you're almost falling asleep right there. Sorry.
Checking something on my phone.
Okay. What were your thoughts? I thought TLC was actually a pretty well-rounded pay-per-view. There wasn't really a bad match per se. Really all the storylines were kept going along.
I always like this one because you use something other than, fists, knees, heads, whatever you want to use. Like, you're using weapons.
Well, aside from the stipulations, I'm talking about more the quality of the pay-per-view.
One of the best. I always like this. I really enjoyed the last one, the Styles and Ambrose. That was a good one.
Right.
Because they got to use all three.
Of course, yeah.
It's more fun when you get to use everything. But
sure.
I can understand how people wouldn't like it because it's a lot more violent because you can use tables, ladders, and chairs.
Well, you see these kind of weapons being used like every other week in WWE, so it's not anything unusual.
But now you can use them, and they're actually encourage you to use them.
Well, where I heard that before. Okay, Dave Bautista. All right. So the point is, I think this is kind of been like the case with SmackDown. Even though it hasn't been like a barn burner pay-per-view matches, it's been a better overall quality pay-per-view that they've been putting forward. With Raw, you usually have like half the matches are good, others are like, why are these on pay-per-view? Why aren't we watching these on TV instead? So that's the big. I think that's the big issue right here. Julie, this is actually something. Before we sign off right here, I actually wanted to ask Julie this.
Yeah.
Julie, did you see Raw this past week?
Yes, I definitely watched some of it, and I saw Charlotte smack her father.
Well, not just that. I don't know if you've been keeping an eye on this. This whole Rusev, Lana, Enzo Amore storyline that's been going on. and I'm getting some bad vibes about this. This harkens back to last year.
Right.
Like before we found out Rusev and Lana were actually engaged.
Right.
We had the whole four-way storyline going on with Rusev, Summer Rae, Lana, and Dolph Ziggler. And it just feels like we're going down this road again. Because, I mean, here's the thing. And I ask this question seriously. Why are we made to believe that we should be booing Rusev for anything that he's done this year? Okay, in his story, I mean, first off, in his storyline with Reigns, the whole thing was started by Reigns coming out and disrespecting his wife during their wedding celebration.
Right.
And then it was basically just about Reigns coming out week after week, either insulting Lana's family or Rusev's family and friends, and basically just disrespecting everything that Rusev held dear to him. And then, I mean, and Rusev ends up losing. Go figure. He ends up losing the championship. He ends up losing at Hell in a Cell. Then you come to this, and don't get me wrong, I love, okay, it's like 3 months, like 2 months too late for the skeletons, guys. Come on. And then we get to this with Enzo just walking, I mean, incidentally, by accident, because he did get locked out of the locker room, but walking around naked, essentially accosts Lana while being naked.
While being what?
While being naked. He was naked, walking backstage, and he comes across Lana and basically just starts hitting on her with Rusev right nearby. And again, Rusev does what any husband would do, comes to the defense of his wife, and yet we're supposed to be cheering for Enzo. Why? Because he was naked in front of a hot Russian woman. Is that why we're supposed to be cheering him?
I think that last week's
came in at a really weird time.
Yeah, I think last week's Raw I think just was kind of like R-rated, kind of going back to the way it used to be a long time ago.
This week, you basically had Lana and Rusev having some sort of like marital dispute. Lana takes her ring, throws it in Rusev's face, and tells her, This ring represents that you're the only man that can have me, and then she throws it in him, and that basically tells him that okay, you are no longer the only man that can have me, and basically tries to go to Enzo for emotional support.
Yeah.
And basically tells him, okay, would you like to come to my hotel room?
Yeah, it was.
And then you could see Enzo's having like a moral dilemma. I mean, on the one hand, his body's saying, "Oh, go for it, man," but his heart and his mind and Cass are saying this is not a good idea. So Cass, gets in the middle of this, accepts a match with Rusev. So that's for later in the night. Enzo shows up at the hotel room, and he's having second thoughts. Like I said, here comes Lana in this slinky red.
Yeah,
red
it
robe.
was awful. It was too much.
Then she basically drags him in, starts stripping him down. We see Cass coming out for his match, and Rusev's music plays. He doesn't come out. The gears start turning in Cass's head, and suddenly he realized me and Enzo both just got set up. So basically, Cass knows Rusev challenged him to a match to get him out of the way, to keep him from accompanying Enzo and having him make a really big mistake. So Enzo's basically being stripped down by Lana, but then Lana tells him what she was originally saying in Russian, that she. Can I get Julie? Oh, hello.
I'm right here.
Hi.
Yeah, I
And
just
that she
think
basically
it just
told
took
him, "You are a fool." He realizes he stepped into a big-time trap, and turns around, sees Rusev, who beats the bejesus out of him, cracks him over the head with a vase, tosses him out, basically in his skivvies, and he goes back in with Lana to do God knows what. So,
Yeah.
and Lana was enjoying all this. So, if they had plotted it like this from the start, to make the two seem like a very evil couple that were basically just trying to get the drop on Enzo, instead of making Enzo out to be like a chauvinist pig, which he pretty much didn't help himself by the fact that he basically hit on Lana from the start while he was like in the nude.
Yeah.
So I mean, who really looks good coming out of this?
You know what? Nobody looks good, and Stephanie McMahon doesn't look good, and
WWE doesn't look good.
They don't look good. I don't know why they did this. It was just a spiral downward, R-rated turn that we don't need. And if it's going to continue like that,
I
they're
mean,
going to
don't
lose
get me
so
wrong.
many
I don't mind going back to the
viewers.
PG-13 TV 14 days at WWE that the Attitude Era was notorious for, but there's some things that you just kind of you kind of just don't do. You don't go this far.
You don't go. I mean, and there's the whole there's also,
Here's the thing. Using sex for comedy is one thing. Using sex in a very dramatic, tense thing like this. Like, here's the thing. We've seen sex stuff like this in the years past. Like with Mark Henry and Mae Young. Like when a couple of the Booker T and Goldust skits from 2002, 2003. That kind of stuff was funny. That kind of stuff was hilarious. Don't get me wrong. I mean, all the diva skits, like the Thanksgiving Bowl, the Gravy Bowl.
But this was something different.
Yeah, this was something different.
Yeah.
I think something that was really off-putting.
Did you read any viewer responses or any reviews on it? I'm just curious what the news
I
has
mean,
been
basically the
saying
same
about
thing I said. Okay, up to this point, why should we have been booing Rusev for anything that he did? Basically, we should even be cheering him for this. Right. I mean, the fact is, he caught Enzo trying to make it with his wife. Okay, there hadn't been any divorce papers signed. They were still together. They were having a marital spat. But Enzo tries to horn in on this, literally, and okay, he ends up getting the crap beat out of him, and deservedly so. And yet we're going to continue to cheer for Enzo just because, oh, Rusev's Bulgarian and Lana's Russian and rah and boo foreigners. I mean, that's basically it. That's like the lowest common denominator is that the only reason we're disapproving of Rusev and Lana is because they're foreign.
It's because they're what?
Because they're foreign. That's
not right.
That's basically the sole reason why we're supposed to be booing them. If it was anyone else, I guarantee you they'd be getting cheers.
Yeah, and then in the crowd, they scream USA, USA whenever he's
exactly, because you don't want him getting over.
Yeah.
You want him to remain a heel, because God forbid Rusev's extremely witty on Twitter. If you've seen some of his Twitter ramblings, he's hilarious.
No,
Rusev is, and so is Lana. But I mean, and he comes across very well on TV too. But the bottom line is they don't want him being a face. That's the bottom line. But
I hope it doesn't stay in this direction moving forward.
I mean, they're expecting us to cheer for. They expect us to cheer for Reigns, even though he did what a heel would do to undermine Rusev and win the U.S. Championship. Now we're expected to do the same for Enzo, who is very popular along with Big Cass. But what's the payoff here? What do Rusev and Lana get us? What does Enzo get out of this other than having the crap beat out of him from the last 2-3 weeks? What's the point of all this?
I have no idea, and I don't like it either.
I don't like it either. I mean, there are most storylines I tend to just sweep under the rug. They don't matter as much to me. But the fact is, this whole thing with just how they've been handling Rusev for the latter half of 2016 is just mind-boggling. It really is. I mean, and I don't know when it's going to clear up, because it's clear that he has a certain connection with the audience. It's clear that he's very popular. I just don't know why they just don't take his character in another direction. I'm not saying have him be like, oh, born in Bulgaria, made in America, because that didn't work for Del Rio, the whole made in Mexico, but born in Mexico, but made in America. That whole thing didn't work. But I'm just saying, try taking Rusev's character in a different direction that will get him those much vaunted cheers and not just be drowned out by USA chants. That's all I'm saying. All right, so we have reached the end of episode 145 of the Wrestling Connection. Next week, actually, we'll just be getting right back into the thick of things with our Roadblock End of the Line. Oh, God, that's a bad name for a pay-per-view. Roadblock End of the Line pay-per-preview. That will be next Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's right, Friday, 2 p.m. sharp Eastern Standard Time. Hopefully we'll have Greg and Julie and Nick and possibly Brian, and hopefully we'll eventually hear from my erstwhile co-hosts Zach and Julian. In the meantime, make sure to check out our official website, thewrestlingconnection.com. Of course, our Wrestling Connection YouTube channel, Facebook page, and Twitter handle at WConnection. But in the meantime, folks, I am off for the weekend. So, as always, remember to be connected, get connected, stay connected. You have a good night, ladies and gentlemen. I've heard it too many times to ignore it. It's some things that I'm supposed to be. Someday we'll find it, the Wrestling Connection. The lovers, the dreamers.